His name is Charles Wolfsman. He hails from the Netherlands, and at Monterrey, Mexico, he revived the legend of the Flying Dutchman by dominating round 2 of the 2005 Toyota Atlantic Championship. From Great Britain comes Catherine Legg, who at Long Beach, California, placed her name at the head of all female open-wheel drivers by becoming the first woman to win a major North American event. The first Toyota Atlantic competitor from Estonia, Tonis Kazmets, not only drives but manages the engineering chores as well. Those combined talents led him to second at Monterrey. From French Canada comes Antoine Basset, a former Renault and Ford pilot who captured a podium position at Long Beach in his first ever Atlantic outing. And from the US of A comes Californian Kyle Kelly, a regional SCCA champion who's made his presence felt since joining this year's championship effort. To date, these 5 have led the way for the rest of those competing in the 32nd season of the world's most prestigious open-wheel development series. Their talent, commitment, and daring-do has set the stage for another down-to-the-wire Toyota Atlantic Championship, a series noted for side-by-side, hard-charging, no quarter given, none asked for racing. To succeed here is to set sail for the major leagues of motorsports, and everyone who started the year at Long Beach well understands that. Welcome to Portland, Oregon, home of the Festival of Roses, Portland International Raceway, and round 3 of the 12-round 2005 Toyota Atlantic Championship. Now here's the way the points look at the beginning of today's festivities, with Charles Wolfsman holding a slim 6-point lead over both Legg and Basset, while Dan Kopp holds a 4-point lead over his closest threat from the rest of those competing in the Yokohama C2 Cup. I'm Rick DeBrule, and along with expert commentator Jan Begas and pit reporter Dave Burns, I'll be bringing you coverage of 2 Atlantic events today, starting with round 3 to be followed immediately by round 4. That's a lot of racing, so let's get started. Let's talk about qualifying. It turned into a slightly rainy affair with Monterrey winner Charles Wolfsman losing out to Andreas Wirth with a pole that marks a milestone for the series.
You are looking at the 100th driver to score a Toyota Atlantic Championship pole position. That's Andreas Wirth, and first for him in the championship, first for Brooks Racing. But the big question is now, right alongside you, going into the first corner, is the man who dominated in Monterrey, Mexico. How do you hold him off?
I just try to make a good start from my pole position and to win the start and to be the first one in the festival corner, so in the first right-hander, and then that's important to be the first one out of that corner, and then the race can continue. And so I think if I'm the first one out of the corner, everything will be fine.
Row number 2 finds the youngster out of Huntington Beach, 19-year-old Kyle Kelly. Besides Tonis Kazmets, Tonis had a bit of a rough morning in the morning session. It was overcast, the track was cold tires. He went off, slightly damaged the rear wing, as you can see. Fortunately, no other damage as a result. Row number 3, neighbors to the north and south, Antoine Basset out of Canada and David Martinez out of Mexico. Row number 4 finds Catherine Legg and Chris Dyson. And Catherine also had a hard time in the morning session. Once again on those cold tires, went off the track. As a result, just nosed into the tires. Unfortunately, all the damage was the nose. As a result, they replaced that, and she's back on the track and okay. Row number 5, C2 pole sitter Lee Atkins beside a very famous racer named Al Unser III.
And we're glad to have back with us in the Toyota Atlantic Series the youngest member of the Unser Racing clan. Al, good to have you back, and we're going to have you for the rest of the season, right?
Correct. We'll be racing here the rest of the year with Brooks Racing Associates. Got a new sponsor, and I'm ready to get after it.
And for those of you that have been following this young man throughout his racing career, you know he's been called by a few different names, being the 3rd Unser in that family. Mini Al when he was a baby, Just Al when he was a child, and Al Unser III when he's an adult. Call him what you want. He's back in the series and running fast.
Row number 6 has our Yokohama C2 leader, Dan Kopp. He's the leader of the points besides Chris Soliadis. Row number 7 is Justin Sofio, who won the C2 division at Long Beach beside Roger Glover. Row number 8, Dan Selznick, Tim Haraney. Row 9, Brian McEntee, Daryl Liskey. And the last row, Marcus Shikawa and Bob Siska. Dave Burns is patrolling pit lanes for us today. Let's check in with him.
And Rick, something new here at this venerable racetrack. The festival curves have been changed. Less severe angles in the turns. They paved over the gravel trap in case you blow the corner. Supposed to make for better racing and fewer retirements. We'll see how they do right after they get the green. Jan?
Yes, and of course, when they get the green, the first place they're going to hit is the festival curves, and then some long, long corners where the balance of the car has to be right. The best place to pass, of course, into turn 1, those festival curves.
A couple of in-car cameras today. Number 1, Antoine Bassett will be riding on board with him, also with Tonys Kazmits, and they're getting a green flag and going racing. Spreading out, heading down for that first turn that's caused so much damage for racing in the past. Let's see how they do. They get through pretty cleanly.
Kazmits slots into second spot behind Worth. He talked about he wanted to be first out of the festival, and he is.
Yeah, he was the fastest man out of that morning session this morning, and as a result, even though he had that wing problem where he just backed it in, he didn't do any real damage to the car. He felt very comfortable for the race, and obviously he got a great start. And look behind him is David Martinez.
Martinez also with a nice start. Kazmits has been very quick this weekend, hasn't had the best of luck. We documented getting off course this morning, but Kazmits is a guy who really, I think, has got a handle on this racetrack, but the conditions have changed. It's much warmer now than when they qualified.
Let's ride on board with Antoine Bassett out of Canada on this back part of the raceway.
Almost as fast as the front straightaway, and then a really fast kink coming off the back. The cars really respond with a lot of downforce there, and this is the most important corner on the racetrack, shown as corner 10 on our track map, leading on to the front straightaway. You have to get a great drive, and he did. Look at the great drive he got away from Kazmits.
He's got a good solid lead. Andreas Worth, who is leading this race. Just behind him, Tonys Kazmits. That's the view out the back of Tonys, and there you see David Martinez. And Bassett tried to get a look on the inside, but just wasn't quite close enough to make it happen.
Amazing to me that Andreas Worth could make that much headway in one lap. But that obviously shows that even with the change in conditions, that car is exactly how he wants it.
Yeah, this is the nicest conditions that these guys have faced all weekend. Both sessions yesterday, 2 half-hour sessions, they had a situation where it was a little dry in the first half and then a little bit rainy in the second half. This morning it never rained, but it was cold, it was overcast. In fact, the moment the session ended, the sun came out, and it's been nice ever since. Dave? Dave Burns down on
Rick. It was a little confusing to the drivers too, because the morning practice sheets on Friday, no one really knew what they had, but the one team that was pretty confident that underneath the numbers they were good, it was this 8 team of Andreas Worth. Engineer Rick Harvey told me that they are pretty sure that when it dries up, if it dries up this weekend, they're going to have a very fast race car, and they showed it by sitting on pole and now leading this race.
Yes, but that final time off of corner number 10, he got wide of the apex, got off of the power band, and certainly lost some time to Kazmits. So he has now found the limit of that car already on the second lap, pushed a little too hard in the final corner and lost some time. Now he has to see, okay, can he regroup, or is now Kazmits going to get the bit between his teeth?
Now this is the battle for 4th place on the track. This is Antoine Bassett in the orange car. Behind him is Kyle Kelly, the 19-year-old out of Huntington Beach, running the series on a shoestring. Wiggles just a little bit there, but in the last lap he was trying to get a lineup to see if he could make that move on Bassett, but at the end of the front straight just didn't have enough to make it happen.
And Kylie, he's a great kid. He's got a big smile all the time. His dad's his team manager. They've been doing this a long time. He's a champion in the Star Mazda Red Line division, so he knows how to win a championship, and it seems like every race he gets faster and faster. Certainly qualifies better every time out.
Yeah, he moved up to the Atlantics this year, and now he is trying to move up on this driver right here, Antoine Bassett, who meanwhile is trying to move up on the car just ahead of him, David Martinez, who joined the series in Monterrey, Mexico, and had that great finish.
Now, I was going to say I thought he was close enough, but he went into top gear there. Not the kind of pole he wanted.
We're going to take a break. We'll come right back. And in the race, this is the guy who got the pole, and he got the first turn, and he has led so far the entire way. But just like in Monterrey, Mexico, the car behind him, that belongs to Tonys Kazmits. In Mexico, he hounded Charles Wolfsman the entire way, and once again, he finds himself in, unfortunately, familiar territory.
Yeah, and I was concerned a bit. There's a move. Antoine Bassett looks like he's ducking to the inside, trying for third.
There he goes side by side, and Martinez sees the discretion, the better part of valor, lets him go by. But in the meantime, now he's got to contend with Charles Wolfsman, who's also come back up behind Martinez. Wolfsman was able to get by Kyle Kelly.
And certainly if you lose your momentum if you're going to, this is the place to do it, because there's really not an opportunity to pass through these complex of corners. The place, certainly, as Antoine Bessette showed, the place to do it. Set it up on the straightaway. Just as we were going to the break, I said I thought he was close enough to pass, but it seems like his top gear has a big split. When you hear it drop between each one of the successive ratios, it seems like it goes, like you got too much of a gap. Doesn't do good for me.
I like the sound effect. Let's talk about Antoine Bessette's season. This was Long Beach, and unfortunately, this didn't go the way he wanted. He was on the pole, but couldn't catch up to his teammate, Catherine Legge, who ultimately ended up winning. And this is what happened down in Mexico. Hit that curb hard, spun out, and that resulted in a finish not so great. We're talking about with his team engineer and team owner, I should say, Jim Griffith, who was talking about the difference between Catherine Legge's setup and Antoine Bessette. He said Antoine Bessette really attacks the corner, and Zwolsman's getting by Martinez.
Fortunately, Martinez going backwards. I don't know if that's the case of just a little loss of momentum, but certainly Zwolsman, like we said, he knows when to pounce. He is a fast character.
And look at Zwolsman's nose. I thought I saw that a little bit earlier, but indeed, the nose on Zwolsman's car is a little cockeyed. And it is just askew.
If it's askew, he'll be fine. If there's actually a piece that somehow is fatigued and starting to break, that's a really, really bad thing, obviously. But if your front wing assembly just has been knocked askew, you could actually do reasonably well in that condition as long as it doesn't rub on the tire.
Yeah, and that's the amazing thing, is that he not only does he have the wing knocked out. Now, this was the problem. Back in Long Beach, Zwolsman had a problem with that little piece that was left on the car. He got the pole, but had to go to the back of the pack. Still, he ended up finishing third after an absolutely great charge. And then came Mexico. He took off and could not be beaten that day. Tonys Kazman tried, but was never able to get by. So Zwolsman, as a result, is leading in the championship series right now with 60 points. But the question is whether that nose is going to hurt his situation at all. Dave Burns, what can you tell us?
Right now, Rick, his car owner, Carlos Bobeda, doesn't think so. He said, we've been watching the stopwatch, making sure his times are staying up there, and so far, we're pleased with what we see.
The only thing is, I believe it's starting to shift more. It may not have been a problem before, but from that high shot, I think there's more of an angle there than there was previously. If that thing gets too much out of perpendicular with the front of the car, you're going to lose a lot of downforce, and that definitely would be a problem.
I'm always amazed when you see race cars. Oh, and this is a problem. This is number 21. That is the car that belongs to Roger Glover out of Reno, Nevada. And he is stopped dead in the middle of the course down at that last turn, which is likely to bring out a red flag.
Well, these cars do have starters, and traditionally they can get them fired back up, unless, of course, there's a drivetrain problem or something. But that is one thing great about the Toyota Atlantic Series, is that they do have onboard starters. But at the moment, looks like that is not working.
He looks pretty dead in the water. And talking with Catherine Legge, she was not having she had some problems during the course of the weekend. She was saying she was hoping for yellow flags to bunch up the series. Now let's take a look at just exactly what happened with Roger Glover. The result of a spin.
Just lost it on the entry. That's a place where you're braking and turning at the same time. Again, an important corner to get off of, but you're coming in kind of unsettled. Unfortunately, for some reason, not enough battery juice, you would assume, to get it refired.
Now let's see what happened. The safety car is getting out there. Meanwhile, everybody's going to have to motor around very slowly. We're going to take a brief break as they go to a full course yellow. Charles Zwolsman, now this big question is what to do with Charles, whether his nose is going to get any worse. We'll find out in a moment. We'll come right back. The winner gets the other guy's car, and the loser needs to find a ride home. Pink premieres Wednesday at 8:30 Eastern and Pacific, exclusively on Speed. Dave?
With Nick Harvey, race engineer for Andreas Wirth. Nick, other than the bobble off the final turn early on, everything to plan so far?
We're a bit loose, actually, yes, or oversteer for us English people. So it's not as balanced as it was this morning. We'd like to be a little bit better.
All right, Yanni's going to have to work on how he drives that car, it sounds like, over the course of the event.
Yeah, it's a case when your car is loose, meaning the rear is stepping out, you have to be really gentle with the steering wheel. You can't yank it into the corners, that way you can end up swapping in. So he is going to have to spend the rest of the day being ultra smooth.
And now the issue for Charles, or I should say for Tonys Kazman, is staying as close as he can to Andreas Wirth and to try and take advantage of him on this restart. But Andreas Wirth, not unfamiliar with starting from the front. He was the Formula BMW champion last year. He won 4 races, had 3 poles. He's used to starting up front. Now he takes his lead as he tries to get a good jump on the green flag.
The reason he went so slow off the first corner, leading to the first corner, I should say, is he wanted to go slower so they wouldn't be able to draft into the complex coming up.
And Tonis Kazmits looks to the outside, tries to make a move. Can't do it, but you also saw David Martinez moving out as well. There you're back on board with Antoine Bassett, who's back in that 3rd spot. Behind him is Charles Wolfsman, then Martinez, and then Kyle Kelly, who was trying to find a way to get by, but could not get by.
That was a very nice restart for Andreas Worth. Again, what I'm trying to say is the reason he waited so long to get on the power is their terminal speed on the straightaway was slower, which means there's less chance for drafting and having somebody get by. It was a nice move.
Let's get down to Dave Burns.
And Rick, David Martinez in the 7 car has lost a couple of positions, so I ran down to his car owner, Shane Seneviratne, and asked him if he was having any trouble with the car. He said he hasn't told me anything about it, but I'm pretty sure he's playing with the brake bias right now to try to balance that car. Remember, he had an off this morning in morning warm-ups, and they replaced a lot of equipment on the front end of that car.
And when you're talking about Shane, sorry, the Rick, is that he said it has been a scramble to try and get this team ready for this season. He thought he was just going to go and make a debut in Long Beach, and then in fact found out, wait a minute, I'm going to try to run the whole season.
And let's take a look at how Martinez did down in Mexico. He had a great finish, ultimately finished 3rd, but he did not feel good. In fact, he had a bit of a stomach virus. He was pretty wiped out after. In fact, he said he was sick for at least another week after that. This weekend, though, feeling good, but he just has the pressure of trying to help this team along to try to do well, so he's got sponsorship to hopefully go to the next race.
It is amazing to me what adrenaline will do. We have seen some A.J. Allmendinger in the Champ Car Series, was in last race in Milwaukee, felt horrible. I mean, for David Martinez in Monterrey, Mexico, I mean, I don't know how you can drive a car, but adrenaline just takes over your body. You have no idea. Just get out there and get the job done. The toughest part is getting out of the car and realizing, uh-oh, I'm really sick.
Yeah, he was sponsored by Roche Franz, who was a big name down in Mexico. They really wanted to have a big appearance, and he was literally leaving the track in between sessions because he lives in Monterrey and going home to recuperate. Amazingly enough, did a great finish, finished 3rd, and it was enough to propel him into another event.
Look at Kyle Kelly. He's really starting to get with it and really get on the back of Martinez.
Kelly is such a great story, running on a true shoestring budget, not a lot of money that they have, and as a result, they're just doing everything as narrowly as they can. It's just his father, it's just a friend, and the 3 of them, Kyle Kelly, working on the team. Now let's check in with Dave Burns with more on Charles Wolfsman.
Rick checking in with his team owner, that's Carlos Bobeda. Carlos, you had a chance to look at the 11 car under caution slowly. Can you tell anything about that front wing?
The front wing is askew, it's tilted this way. It doesn't seem to be loose, so it's not creating a problem. It's not rubbing on the wheel. It might make it a little slow in some places, but that's about. We have to live with it. If we come in, all the chances are gone.
Did Charles complain about the handling of the car?
No, he hasn't talked at all. Maybe just gritting his teeth or something.
Gritting his teeth, Rick.
Would it do any good if he did talk about the problems associated with the car?
Well, I assume that they have told him, but they don't always tell the driver that he's got a wing askew because they don't want to throw off his concentration. But I'd be curious to find out if they've radioed to him and said, by the way, you've got a wing out of place here.
Yeah, but you can look down probably and see that it's a little askew.
No, actually you can't.
Really can't see it at all?
No, you're sitting low enough in the car. You can't see the front wings.
Maybe you could just see that right corner of it.
No, that's why you, now see, this camera is above his helmet, so you can see the front wings. But for Charles, he can't. That's why you hit things with him, because he can't see them.
As we ride along with Tonis Kazmits, who is sitting in 2nd, we're going to take a brief break and come back with more from Portland. In the year 2000, a couple of guys who would go on to win the Indy 500 battled for the Toyota Atlantic Championship. Buddy Rice won that year and went on to win Indy in 2004. This year's Indy winner, Dan Weldon, will prove that this series is a great training ground for future champions. And they're not the only graduates who went on to win the Indy 500. In 1985, Danny Sullivan did it, followed the next year by Bobby Rahal. 1995, Jacques Villeneuve, and then Rice and Weldon. And this year's race had a host of graduates from this series. Dan Weldon, you know about. Rookie of the Year this year, Danica Patrick, Alex Barron, and a host of others. And I'm picture the guy who would like to follow in their footsteps, leading this race right now. Andreas Wirth had the pole position, has led from the start, although he's been under pressure the entire way by Tonys Kazmets. Kazmets tried to make one move right after that restart, but hasn't been able to reel him in, just as he wasn't able to reel him in. There we got a move going with Kyle Kelly going by Martinez. Side by side.
Ooh, watch out for the contact side by side there. Definitely Martinez did not want to give that up. Kyle Kelly, that was a veteran move from a very young guy. He's definitely got some talent.
And he actually took advantage of the change of the course. Last year, you could not have gone side by side quite that long. With the change in the course through the festival turn there, he was able to actually stay side by side and was actually able to take advantage of it.
If he gets to the front, if he wins a race, I wonder if he'll actually paint his helmet. How many race car drivers do you see with white helmet? Well, we tease him about it, but it is the only one out there, so it's easy to spot. Catherine Legge trying her best to make up from a couple of miscues in practice, had a hard time getting the rhythm going.
Yeah, she's also had a rough weekend because they discovered yesterday she had a problem with her engine. Her car was down 6 miles an hour at the end of the front straight to her teammate, and while 6 miles an hour may not sound like a lot, on that front straightaway, that becomes a big, huge problem in trying to catch up. They changed engines overnight, and as a result, she was doing better until she had that off this morning. Let's check in with Dave and Catherine's team owner.
That's right. One of the hardest things for Catherine is being racing here in the Atlantic Series, being from across the Atlantic. Pam Griffith not only fields a car for her, but you have her living in your home. What's it like to lend support to her when she needs it, being so far away from home?
She's a great person to live with, and she's a wonderful addition to the household. We come home at night, and there's no doubt what we're watching on television. It's always racing, so it's probably more of a fight for the remote control than anything else.
Pam told me before that she used to have just one guy. That's her husband Jim watching racing all the time. Now he's got Jim and Catherine. They're always studying.
Catherine Legge out on the track right now, qualified not as well as she would have liked. As a result, is now back in 7th. Long Beach, though, a very different story. Starting 7th, escaping damage from that tangle with Fernando Reis. Legge battled back and forth with Rocky Moran, ultimately got the checkered flag and became the first woman to win a major open-wheeled event in the United States. And then down in Mexico, well, she had another problem during qualifying. Not a great race, although she did get a point for improving the most positions during the race, qualified 8th, and ultimately moved up to 5th. On the track right now, she is 7th, and she definitely wants to do better than she's doing. She does not have financing for the full season, and she's convinced that she needs the results to get the rest of that money.
Well, I don't want to tip off any announcements, but there has been some talk in the paddock. There have been some negotiations, and I'm very confident she's going to be in that car for the rest of the season. But we'll wait for the official announcement.
Officially.
Yes.
Back up front with Tonys Kazmets, who is in 2nd place. Behind Andreas Wirth, Tonys Kazmets has had this view all day long, and he's trying to figure out how to change it. We'll come back in just a moment from Portland right after this. Catherine Legge, unfortunately, just went off course down in the festival turn. It looked like back on track, no damage as a result. But not what she wanted to have happen. Let's take a look. Yeah, just cooked it going in.
Yep, just on the approach. It is a place where you're braking and turning, and sometimes if you have a little bit too much rear brake bias, it'll turn around on you. This has been a weekend, I think, where she hasn't had the car. Like we said, there were some engine difficulties in qualifying, and then I think when the engine was repaired, she tried just, which happens to all young drivers, maybe tried a bit too hard this weekend, and that's an example of that. Sometimes you just can't make up. The car is what it is, and you just got to pedal it as best you can, not going over the line.
Back up front, you see 2 battles there. Number 1 for 1st and 2nd, and then for 3rd and 4th, Kyle Kelly taking a look just to the inside of Bissett, but deciding not to go for it. Meanwhile, Andreas Wirth in the leading yellow car, just behind him, Tonys Kazmets. And we've been watching, and Andreas Wirth starting to get just a little loose, a little more loose where we can see it on the track. We heard Nick Harvey talk about it, but with Kazmets behind, Wirth having to work really hard, and sometimes you can see him getting a little loose on the track.
But for Bissett here, he is definitely able to close in on Kazmets because of the fact, I think that Andreas Wirth, because he is a bit loose, is kind of backing this field together, giving Zolzman the opportunity to kind of close in from 4th. So theoretically, we could have a 4-way battle here for the finish as they kind of compress.
See if we can see anything. When we saw this couple laps ago. You could actually see it just a little loose. There it is.
Yeah.
A little wider.
And actually, this could be an opportunity right now.
And his opportunity for Zwolsman as well. Zwolsman is very close to Bissett, making the draft down that front straightaway.
Yeehaw!
Looks to the inside, side by side, and Bissett says, "Go ahead, I can't do it."
Wow, that's one aggressive.
Now remember, Zwolsman, the front wing on Zwolsman's car is not correct. It was obviously hit it somewhere this morning. You can see the angle it's at, and he is still managing to stay competitive.
Well, maybe that's why he's doing so well following, because there's not a lot of air going over that wing, Dave.
And he does know it is askew. I checked again with Carlos Bobeda, his car owner, and he told me, yep, Charles knows it is askew. And so he is living with it and racing hard with it. Also, Kazimets, who's been battling for the lead with Worth, he had a problem this morning where he was quick, but he had an off as well. His side pod was dragging the whole time he set that quick lap in morning warm-up, and he didn't even know it.
These guys were definitely getting with it quickly this morning. And very, very interesting about Zwolsman. While we saw the replay, while you were talking there, Dave, you talk about how he's pushing aggressively. That was a very aggressive pass to where there was no question that corner was going to be his. And, of course, that's the way you want to do it, to where you don't get in fighting to the last moment.
Dave?
Down here with Augie Paps, the crew chief on the 6 car. Augie, have you been watching the 8 car, the leader, and seeing where Tonys might have a chance to get by?
Yeah, like through 2, 3, and 4 right now. He's holding them up real bad and just braking a lot earlier. And Tonys gets on the brakes, and it's hard for him to catch back up on the exit. So if we can get a run on him on the last corner here and maybe into the festival, make a move, we need to do it real soon.
Because that's really the best place to pass.
It really is. You know, there's a nice wide track going in and a lot of room.
All right, watching on the monitor down here, you can see everything that's going on, guys.
Yeah, Tonys felt it down in Mexico when he was running behind Charles Zwolsman, that he felt he actually had a faster car. He just didn't have it fast at the right places. As a result, while he was able to stay behind him the entire time, when he had the advantage, he couldn't take advantage of it. Here's what happened down in Mexico. This was the one time he was able to get almost side by side, but he couldn't make it happen. And as a result, he ended up finishing second. Still, pretty darn happy about it.
Yeah. Well, one step at a time. I know his sponsors, Flexovit, were just thrilled with the coverage they got in Mexico. They sell a lot of abrasives. And look, oh, he's making his move.
This is it. Side by side, goes down beside Andreas Worth, and he's got this one easily. Now the secret is not to overcook it into the turn. He doesn't. He holds off perfectly. And now the question is, how much better is that car in those other turns, and will he be able to build up a lead?
Oh, I think so. I think his car is definitely faster, but Zwolsman, who we thought was essentially kind of hanging on for the ride here, that front wing, especially in traffic here, he gets up behind somebody. It seems like it's not a problem at all.
Remember, Zwolsman is the points leader in the series after Monterrey, Mexico. After 2 races, he leads the series with 60 points. And thinking about that championship, he wants a few extra points in this race that second place would give him. Let's take another look at the pass.
And that was, of course, set up coming off the final corner. That the end of it was done for some drafting. See, he's already in position here. It's essentially done. These kind of passes are set up a lap ahead of time, a half a lap, and he just did a much better job getting through this section off the final corner. And he's dropped another spot, has Andreas Worth.
Zwolsman was able to get by. We've heard about Andreas Worth's problems, the car being loose, handling not being what he wanted. We saw him loose at various times going around the track. Fell to the clutches of both Tonys Kazimets and Charles Zwolsman, and now he's going to have to fend off Antoine Bissett, who's behind him as well. With a new leader on the track, Tonys Kazimets going for his very first victory. We'll find out how it's going to fare in just a moment when we come back to Portland. Looking out the back of the leader of this race, Tonys Kazimets from Estonia. Ran a few races last year, and as a result is no longer classified as a rookie. And in fact, this was the first track that he actually raced on, that he's raced on this year, that he also raced on last year. He did the doubleheader here last weekend.
Working through some lap traffic. Bob Siska right ahead of him.
This is where you just want to not make mistakes.
Now has Roger Glover looking off the back between he and his follower Zwolsman.
And Zwolsman started to go the inside of Glover, and it looked like Glover was just a little further ahead. And I don't want to say he shut the door, but he moved in tightly, and as a result, Zwolsman had to pay just a little more attention. Now this is just before the pass. And you see Tony's. Whoa! Dave?
Well, I just went down to check with the 8 crew, and Nick Harvey, the engineer, told me that, you know, the car is a little bit looser, but the 6 car, when he passed us, Kazimets hit us. And so we went back and checked the replay, and sure enough, they wonder if that may as well have something to do with the handling going away on Andreas Wurst, number 8.
Yeah, that doesn't help at all.
Wow.
That's amazing, though, that Kazimets was able to continue with the speed.
Well, remember I told you if something falls off on his car, he doesn't notice it anyway. He just keeps driving faster.
And rubbing his race.
I'm always amazed, you know, drivers, engineers, they got to get the car just right, every piece, every angle, everything, and then a driver will hit things during the course of a race and then just keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, would anybody think that you could do that with a wing at that angle?
Needed some teammate help there. Zoltzman unfortunately didn't get it. But I have a feeling now, judging by what Kazimets' lead is, that he's going to be able to, one would think, to just pace himself again if there's not traffic that plays a part. Certainly seems like he has a handle on it.
Well, and think about this. Considering the look.
That's Bissett.
Antoine Bissett off the track.
Ooh, careful.
Agricultural excursion. Handled it very nicely. Question is, how many places did that cost him? That's Darrell Liskey who went by, but he's a C2 car. Oh, side by side they went into the turn, and I think he just got forced out by Roger Glover.
Yeah.
Glover, as he's going through the turn, just kind of carried himself out wide, and as a result, Antoine Bissett had no place to go. Dave?
And I suppose getting forced off, Jan, is one reason why PIR has been so difficult to handle this weekend. But why have we seen so many drivers off? It seems like not that bad a place to be aggressive.
Well, I think it's a place that you can afford to get off on occasion. But when you get off in the morning practices when it's wet, next stop, tires.
Yeah, the beauty of the situation, at least now that the sun's come out, when you get onto that grass, you don't slide quite as much. We'll come back right after another break. That Tonys Kazimets is interested or worried about right now is this one right here, trying to go for his very first Toyota Atlantic victory. And we talked at the last race how down in Mexico he was engineering his own car. He was getting some help from a guy named Alan O'Leary who works for Carl Haas, but O'Leary was actually at Disney World with his family, and they were calling back and forth on the telephone. O'Leary is here this weekend, and Carl Haas says, sure, go off, you can play with him for a while, but he's not in the paddock and in the garage working with him the whole time. Tonys Kazimets is having to do all the work by himself. He gets the input from Alan. He said the phone bills are a little cheaper than calling from Mexico to Disney World, but he's still doing not only the driving chores, but the ultimate engineering chores as well.
Yeah, he's definitely a naturally talented guy, but he also has the mechanical ability too. He knows how to do it himself, and he's also got such an interesting demeanor. He's just like a bit of a wisecracker, you know. And but he definitely has the ability behind the wheel, and at least at the moment, looks like he has things well in hand.
Yeah, he continues to lead. Once again, Andreas Wurst was the guy who was leading this race at the very beginning. He fell back, and now this is the car that's in second. That is Charles Wolzman, who won the race in Monterey, led the entire way. And I think it'd be a bit of a stretch to ask him to catch up to Tonys Kazimets, considering the condition of that front wing, but it does look like it's a little bit closer. The gap is a little closer.
It's significantly closer, and one would think that Kazimets is just driving quick enough to be sure that he crosses the line where he needs to, but one never knows. I mean, I would think that if I was Zoltzman, I'd just be happy. If I could get on the podium with a bent front wing, that'd be a good day.
And get some serious points out of it. Meanwhile, there is Andreas Wurst, who started from the pole. Right behind him is Kyle Kelly, who now that he sees third, thinks maybe I'd like that position right there. Dave?
And this is where he started the race, right behind Andreas Wurst, having qualified third. He should do well here. He's won 2-star Mazda races here, and he said if I can get through that first quarter, I'm just going to make my pace and try to hunt him down in the end, and he's got Wurst in his sights.
Yeah, he's got some great momentum when you think about it, having won the last 2 races he was at this track. However, that was a different series, this much more powerful car, and he kind of got smoked on the start just a little bit. Has had to work his way back, but now he's in fourth with third place in his sights. His father works on the car. He's got a buddy who works on the car. They've teamed up with McAtee Racing. McAtee transports the car for him, and his dad helps, acting kind of as a crew chief for McAtee, for Brian McAtee as well. But ultimately, they're running on a very tight budget. We'll come back with more from Portland in just a moment. Only on speed. I think it's declare your citizenship to the NASCAR nation. I'll get it out eventually. Looking out the back of Tony Kazmet's cars, Wolfsman is definitely closer. The gap a few laps ago was several seconds. Now it's down to just a half a second. But he only has one lap. We're on the white flag lap, and that's a lot to ask.
Well, I think he may actually be close enough to make a move on this lap, but you would typically make a move into the festival curves, but unfortunately that's after the start-finish line. So you never know. If he gets good drive off the final corner, we could have a photo finish.
Tony Kazmet once again ran both these races last year. His best finish, though, was 11th. And, I love talking to Tony. He's like, I was engineering the car, and I made a mistake. I just didn't do a good job of it. He's so honest. Whenever you go and you ask him a question, and he's quick to blame himself and say, I wasn't up to the challenge. Looks like today he is up to the challenge.
I think he's up to this challenge. I think he didn't want to push it. He didn't want to make a silly mistake. See, all of a sudden we saw Zolzman really close. Now all of a sudden the gap is expanding. I think he has it under control. But of course, there's two very important corners coming up that'll make the difference.
Secret is not to make a mistake as you come out of this last set, and I don't think he's going to do it. Charles Wolfsman not nearly close enough to take advantage before they get to the checkered flag. Tony Kazmet dips down low to say hello to the crew, and he gets his first Toyota Atlantic victory. And you can see his fist pumping in the air, and he is going to be one happy guy. You saw how happy he was in Mexico, and that was second. Now he's got a victory behind him, his first ever in this series. And you look at a long road. Born in Estonia, raced in Estonia, was the Baltic States Kart Racer of the Year, did some racing over there, eventually immigrated to the United States. And now, this is the true American story, immigrating and doing very well. Dave Burns?
With Augie Patch now. Augie, after the off this morning in the warm-up, did you ever think that you see victory lane?
I'll tell you what, we've come a long way since this morning. I just can't believe it. We're so excited for Tonys. All the guys, everybody's worked really hard on this deal. And Flex of it has really helped us out a bunch, and we're just really happy to be here today.
We'll go catch up with Tonys. I bet he's pretty excited too.
Yeah, I think only slightly. That fist has not stopped pumping the entire way. Kazmet gets the victory just ahead of Charles Wolfsman. Andreas Wirth, who was on the pole, finishes third. And we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll hear from the winner of this race up in Portland.
In victory lane now with Tonys Kazmet. He takes off the helmet, and Tonys, when you finished on the podium in Monterey, you'll turn and face us here. Your engineer, Alan O'Leary, wasn't here. You placed a phone call. Now you got him in victory lane. How proud are you?
Very proud with the team. They are behind me 100%. Without my friends, I can do nothing. So thank you very much.
Tell us about the pass of Andreas Wirth and the contact you made out of the final corner.
Obviously, it was pretty good draft, and I didn't expect to be draft that good. So it sucked me a lot closer than I anticipated. So that was a little contact. Maybe it looked worse than it actually was, but unbelievable.
You seem unbelievably calm. Are you excited?
Yes, I'm very excited. We have to go through the tech to get it done, but race was unbelievable. So I'm very happy.
Yep, doesn't get the check till tech is over, but Tonys Kazmet took the checkered flag first, guys.
I think he can feel pretty confident as he dumps a little water, the victory water, we'll call it, on Alan O'Leary, that engineer we were talking about. A happy man. He's the guy who won here today, just ahead of Charles Wolfsman. Andreas Wirth, Kyle Kelly doing very well. Antoine Bissett ultimately ended up fifth. Not bad considering the little off he had. Martinez, Unser, Dyson, Catherine Legg back in ninth. She's not going to be happy with that. Justin Sofio was the C2 winner today. A great result for everybody out here. And look at this front wing. Charles Wolfsman not only survived that, but finished second with it. Dave?
And we'll ask Charles about that. Looking at the front of your car now, did you know it was that severe, and how was the car handling?
Yeah, I could see it from my cockpit, and I was swamped at the start. I didn't make a really good start, and two cars came on me, and see what's the result.
Did you have to adjust your driving style?
I got a little more understeer. It was difficult, especially following cars. I couldn't get close to them in the fast corners. So I'm surprised that I still was so quick and still got the fastest lap and almost got Tony in the end.
Yep, he ends up P2, just one spot behind the winner.
He's had quite a season so far. In that very first race in Long Beach, he actually got the pole, but because there was one part left on the car from last season that didn't qualify as a result, failed tech, he had to move to the back of the pack and charge his way through and finished third, which was very impressive. This is the points as they sit right now. Charles Wolzman with 88, leading Tonys Kasmets, who's now moved into second. Antoine Bassett is in third. Catherine Legge has now moved back to fourth. And let's go down to Dave Burns again with third place.
And that is Andreas Wirth. Andreas, you had the fast car at the start, but tell us what the handling of your car was like and why you went backwards.
Yeah, at 12 laps to go, my car went not that good. So I had a lot of oversteering. I don't know, it was after Tonys hit me the second time on the straightaway. I don't know if maybe the alignment is wrong now or was wrong now. I'm on the podium for the first time this season, and we got another race tomorrow, so I try to win tomorrow.
And finishing races has been the problem for Andreas. He does end up on the podium today. Rick?
Got to get those points ever so important. And they've got a packed schedule. They had their first two races, and then they had two races this weekend as well. Then they go off to Cleveland and get two more races, and then they get a bit of a break. They'll go to Toronto, Edmonton, San Jose, Elkhart Lake, and they finish up the season in Montreal, Canada, which is always a great place with a great turnout. And I mentioned the fact that there is a C2 championship here, and Dave Burns is with the winner.
And that's Justin Sofio. Didn't even know if he was going to get here. Put some money into this car, got a new owner. How pleased are you to be the C2 winner?
I'm absolutely excited right now. Couldn't be better to come to Portland with Matheson Motorsports, Harlem Investments, and finish, number one in C2 for my third C2 start, to have three C2 wins. I'm really excited.
A little worn out, very happy, Justin Sofio. Rick?
Yeah, needs that points prize.